Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Assessment Reform Week, The Essentials. My name is Sandra Allan. I'm the Subject Sector Lead for Creative Arts, and joining me today is Debbie Hartley, one of our Senior Associates for GCSE Dance. And today we're going to focus on our wonderful subject and look into and delve into the assessment reform that we shall be going through. Before we start, I'd really encourage you all to join Slido. That's slido.com. And if you pop in hashtag AQA Dance. On this, you'll be able to ask us questions, you'll be able to share insight, and this is all about moving into the reform area and working together, and your insight is so vital to us. So we're here as part of the Assessment Reform Week to talk you through everything you need to know all together in one place. Across a dedicated week, we're exploring what these changes means for our learners, our subjects and our schools. So far, you'd already have seen on Monday that there is a kick-off webinar looking at reform more generally and what it means for you. Yesterday, you will have seen via a video podcast what reform means for schools. This was a real conversation with school leaders and what really matters now. And today we have our expert-led subject-specific webinars with dance-focused updates that will answer some of your key questions and what assessment reform could mean for the next coming years. And then we've still got more to go for the rest of the week. Tomorrow is all about how we can support you and looking at the support available to you. And then finally on Friday, we'll be at part of the Festival of Education, focusing on getting teachers like you involved in assessment reform with live teacher panels. And I will talk a little bit more about teacher panels in a moment. So, okay, let's move on to assessment reform. So education reform is underway. Back in November, the Department for Education had submitted a report, the Curriculum and Assessment Report, and their key findings. What I loved about this report, and I can't say this enough, and I've been at AQA for 26 years now, but this was just probably one of the most joyful things from an arts perspective, that you really saw arts coming through, talking about a broad and balanced curriculum, talking about the value of arts, talking about the value of non-exam assessment, old school coursework. So there's really some key things. So if you haven't read it, have a look, and this is what's kicking off our reform. But what is it sort of generally the highlights it's saying is it's saying evolutionary, not revolutionary. But that doesn't mean we don't need to go as far as we possibly need to and influence the Department for Education on what needs to happen for GCSE dance. They've talked about reduced exam time, and that's absolutely key. Our poor learners spend hours and hours in the exam hall. They've talked about financial education, and really important, they've talked about a diverse and inclusive curriculum. Also, they've talked about digital skills, oracy, and there's that word we all love, creativity, that comes through. They're having a rethink about resets, and they've also talked a lot about coursework, that NEA. So some real key things coming out there. But what we don't know yet is the timings of these consultations and what subject is in which phase. And I'm going to go through those phases, but what we do know is that there will be 2 phases for GCSE and there will be 2 phases for A-level. So let's have a look at those now. So what we have is that right now is the consultation on the national curriculum is expected, and that final curriculum will be published in 2027, with the first teach of the new national curriculum in September 2028. And then we have 2 phases of GCSEs, as I've mentioned. So we have first teach in September 2029, with first assessment in 2031. And then we have phase 2, which is first teach 2030, with first assessment in 2032. And then the A-level rollout. So a similar approach, identical approach, where we have phase 1, first teach 2031, and First Assessment 2033 and First Teach 2032, with First Assessment in 2034 for phase 2. Now I look at these dates and I think, God, they are miles away. They're going to take their years away. And they're absolutely not. There is so much work to be done now. It's so important to have one voice, to make sure that your voice is heard as we work with the Department for Education, with Ofqual, but also when we get to that consultation stage, that you are having your say. So let's have a look what consultation looks like a little bit more. And lots of people, and Debbie, I know you get asked this a lot of the time as well, is, why do AQA do this, or why do we have to be assessed on this? And a lot of things are regulated. So if we start, we have the Department for Education, and they set that overall education policy and that curriculum requirements that are set in England. So they provide that subject content, and that subject content is about the skills they want to see in our subject, the knowledge, the understanding that our students need to know and be prepared for, to be assessed on within GCSE dance. And that provides the policy framework. Ofqual regulates these qualifications, exams and assessments, but they also set the guidelines, the assessment objectives, also looking at the weighting, 60-40. This is a question I think probably we've talked about, and as I said, I've been at AQA for 26 years, most of my time always in dance. Debbie, you've been working with AQA for
30 years.
Yes, that is 30. That is 30 years. And we've seen quite a lot of change within our qualifications. And one of the things I absolutely loved, I found our very first specification, and it was 4 pages. And we were obviously not as regulated as we are that, but the first page was a cover, then it said perform a dance, then it said choreograph a dance, and then it said there'll be some questions on assessing dance, and that was it. We've come a million miles away. I know it does sound perfect. And then we've got JCQ, who provides those common standards for our exams. And then you've got us, the exam board. And as you know, currently we are the sole exam board for dance, and we really do value the qualification. And we're going to then be designing and delivering our specifications and assessment based on that subject content and those regulations.
So can I just just to clarify, AQA do not write the subject content.
No, we can influence.
But what you do is you influence it, and then when it's confirmed, then the specification brings that to life.
Absolutely. Right. And we have to go through an accreditation process that makes sure that we are covering that content,
right,
assessing fairly over number of years, but also meeting the Ofqual regulations, and then we'll be accredited based on meeting those requirements.
And did you say there's a consultation on the subject content?
Yes, which I'm going to come on. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think as well, one of the most important things, it's not just about us going, right, here's your specification, off you go, teach it, and here's some sample assessments. We need to be supporting every teacher to make sure that you're ready to deliver and prepared to deliver our qualifications for when they start. So there's lots more. There's all the wraparound support, the training. You're probably going to hear from me so much over the next few months and years. Okay, so Debbie, in answer to your question about what does the consultation process really look like, so the Department for Education, before that content is finalised, they will do draft documentation, which goes out to public consultation. And we are already starting to have some discussions with them about that draft, and that's being produced and will become live. And of course, we'll let everybody know when that consultation starts. And this means that anyone can submit a response to this. So we would, absolutely, it's so important that we have teacher voice. It's so important that we have practitioners, students, parents, our associates, and also AQA, even though we've been having discussions, will also input at this stage. And then they will consider their responses before publishing the final version. You're never going to get the perfect qualification, but, this is our opportunity to make it real world relevant and accessible. And then alongside that, Ofqual are going to be doing exactly the same thing. So Before the assessment requirements are finalised, they're going to have that draft public consultation that will go out. So this is the weighting. This is the assessment objective. You know, is it 100% NEA? Is it 100% written theory? I'm not saying either of those are going to happen. We have no clue. But that, you know, this is the things that they could be saying at this stage. And again, they will consider those responses before publishing their final versions. And then once AQA have both of these, and we'll be inputting, as I said, we will start working together with our teachers and our associates to create specifications based on these two documents.
Okay.
So, a quick poll. Right now, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you understand about assessment reform and what it could mean for you? If I could ask you all to just quickly go on to that and let me know, scale of 1 to 5. So that's a real high level view. As I say, there are a couple of key things that we don't know yet, and we will keep you updated. But I really wanted to now talk about the key areas about GCSE dance, talking about our current specification and also where we want to see it evolve as we go forward. I'm going to hand over to Debbie in a little moment, but I've just pulled out some key areas, and I think these are quite important. So what does the curriculum assessment review basically mean for dance? So it is saying that we review our subject content to ensure that it's current and relevant. Absolutely agreed. It needs to happen. It's telling us we need to review our assessment methods and that balance. So that 60-40 balance. And that, again, is a really key question, one of which I don't think we'll ever have the perfect solution, but it's one that we want to influence in the majority. We need to ensure inclusivity, representation of different dance styles and practitioners. And I know, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, Debbie, because you want to talk about this a little bit later, but so much work has happened on this specification with our adaptation process to make it as inclusive, but we can always go further, and there's so much more we can do. We want to make sure there are improvements to assessment validity across performance, choreography and theory, and that there's a foundational access to teaching confidence and supports clear progression to further study and or dance careers. And we know, and again, I'm probably saying too much and stealing things, but the transferable skills of a student that comes out of doing GCSE dance or any of the arts, that balance of the encouragement on confidence and well-being is just enormous. So
well, yeah, it's the working together, isn't it? It's the problem solving. I think the list of what it gives a young person is endless. Yeah, really.
And it's really, really interesting. I do find that, you know, particularly with dance and drama and music, that confidence.
Well, I think a lot of teachers would say that with some of their students, they see them at the beginning of the course and they are a very different young person at the end of the course. And if you can say that, then you know that it's made a difference to that young person, or they've made a journey, or your teaching has done something, or they've taken part in a group piece where they may have been reluctant to do that, or they've created something, you know, that you didn't know they had that in them. So I think it just opens up the possibilities for young people.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. So we're going to look at some key topics. These are going to help us to inform the conversations we're having with the Department for Education and Ofqual, and these insights, along with the insights through our teacher panels and various other meetings that we're going to be running. Recently done one on shaping the future, and these will just be continuous. So do expect to hear from me a lot. So
you're saying this is just the start?
This is absolutely the start as we go on. So, Debbie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, so as it's just the start, I think it's really important that as a dance community, I'm still a teacher. I don't do as much teaching as I used to, but I really think the most important thing we can do is get people on board to say what they think their young people want. And I before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's about teachers saying what they would like, but I think we also need to have a look at what they think their young people want as well. So it's both sides. And of course, this isn't going to come in for a couple of years. Like you said at the beginning, it feels like a long time. I think it'll actually be really quick once the kind of mechanism starts and everything happens. So I think it's about what you as adults think about the specification and changes, and what you think your young people would really benefit from in doing it and doing this course. So the first one, assessment reflecting dance practice.
I'm going to stop here.
Yes.
Can we ask everybody, as you're going through these, just use Slido now and give us your, do you agree with what we're saying? What are the pros and cons? So as you're going through, sorry, Debbie, as you're going through, as you're going through, if you can share your insights, keep that conversation going, and then Debbie, I will hand back over to you.
But also, when you're sharing that, please remember that it will be important. It's not just something that you're going to tap in and never be seen again. And all of these views are going to be very important in shaping what comes next. So just let's think about, I think most people who are dance teachers understand the dancing education model is performance, choreography and theory, don't they? We know there's those three strands. So maybe you could actually having a little think about how that's going to reflect real dance practice. And I think it's tied in as well with weighting. And I'm not going to say what weighting I would like, but I will put it out there that I think our young people for GCSE dance come to dance. And for me, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have appreciation or theory, but I think there's a balance to be had, and I think we should get our young people moving. So I would be really interested in how people view the weightings.
Yeah.
And also, if we're going to really throw out a curveball, you know, maybe it's something you want to think about whether it's 100% practical. I mean, that doesn't always fit in with the theory. My feeling is that teachers probably wouldn't necessarily want to go down that route because they value progression maybe to A level, or they feel that it gives the subject some kind of what's the word? Not kudos, but theory has a part to play. But what's the balance? What would you like in that balance? And I think going back to what you said, Sandra, we're never going to please everyone all of the time, are we? So do you currently feel 60-40 is where we should stay, or actually would it be better to have a different weighting? Yeah. And how would that suit your young people? Because at the end of the day, we are here for the young people, aren't we? So that's what we have kind of in our heads. So I think we agreed performance, choreography and theory is going to be the backbone of anything. You said revolution, evolution or revolution. So I think we're going to have that there. But what do you want your performance work to look like? What do you want your choreography work to look like? Does choreography work need to change? Do we have quite a good model for choreography, or is there something else that we could be thinking about? And then theory will come to in a little bit.
I also think it's really interesting when we talk about performance as well, with the current setup of our set phrases and a duet trio. Or is that inclusive? You know, what if we have students that only want to do solo or only want to be in a duet? Or, you know, do we like the set phrases?
Currently, they don't have a choice. Currently, they have to dance as a soloist, and they dance within a group. And I absolutely think that is one area that could be developed. I think quite a lot of centres really value the duet trio task. They value the fact that it's centre-based. They value that they can tailor it to their cohort. They could change it every year if necessary. They don't have to, or they may find something that they feel absolutely works for their students, and equally they don't have to change it. But how do you feel about the set phrases? I think quite a lot of people would feel that they're quite narrow stylistically. What about those young people who absolutely excel at solo performance and eat up the stage and just absolutely perform. You know, they can just light up a space as soloists. Should we give them an opportunity for performance just to be them as a soloist? Or should we have an option so that you as a teacher could look at your young people and say, well, actually, I think, you know, how about this for an idea? They all do a solo performance, they all do a group performance, but then actually for their assessment, you decide which one you feel showcases their performance. And I think we've talked about it before, isn't it? What are we assessing?
Yep. Always assessing the right things. Yeah, exactly. Do we love a metronome?
We certainly do not. We certainly do not. I can tell you as a complete anecdote, my husband has managed to get me some, I've only used them for one day, AirPods.
Okay, so with noise cancelling.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and his little WhatsApp to me was, no more TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. So.
No, and I think, you know, we jest, but actually, I mean, a lot of these, the regulations around the set phrase, the regulations around a duet, or trio, those are things that we should be influencing. But I don't want to be, you know, I have very strong views. I have strong views from my colleagues in our associates, but actually your voice matters the most and what you want to hear. And as I say, we keep saying, you're not going to get the perfect qualification, but if we can improve and evolve as we should.
I think it's really important, if you're going to be the people delivering it, that you have a say.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's not going to be something that's going to suit everyone, but I think we can definitely take this moment to move on and to create something where our young people really, really want to study it. And yes, they're, you know, the metronome is not, it's not inspiring. I mean, we may as well just say that. It's not. So.
And then I guess there's a sort of, we've talked a lot about the performance and the choreography, but there is also our set works within the theory.
Well, yes, and the set works, I think well, you're going to tell us, aren't you? You'll tell us what you think. I think there's a feeling out there that people are comfortable with a lot of the set works. They may like some more than others. They may feel that some set works work better for their students and they can use them practically with their students, and the others are less successful. In defence of the set works, they were chosen quite a long time ago now, so obviously we have an opportunity to really move forward the landscape.
2015, I think we chose them.
Yes, so I mean that's 11 years and the landscape's changed a lot. So I think thinking about, do we want set works? I mean, there you could start there, couldn't you? Do we want them? If you do want them, do you want an element of choice so that you can consider your students' interests and what would resonate with them? I think a lot of teachers will feel that way. Do you want a set work that potentially takes your students out of their comfort zone so you broaden them?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's quite interesting because these qualifications are 10 to 15 years. And, you know, we don't know what we don't know. So we're creating something for the future as well as for the now. So there's some really interesting points there.
I do think we need something age appropriate because some of these young people start at 14.
Yeah.
And I think we also need some vibrancy and some narratives and some colour and some joy and just something that is going to kick off some kind of inspiration in them as well, isn't it?
Well, we want our students to do dance because they want to. You know, year 10, they should be dancing. They should be. It might be their first opportunity to experience dance. And this is what we want: is we want our students to choose a subject like dance, not based on their, you know, they've always danced or they've always had the options to be able to. So, and
I think a realistic cohort has a mix of young people. You know, that some will have had some kind of dance experience and others who might not have had any.
Yeah.
But if we're going to have theory, we want the theory to be as engaging as the practical.
Absolutely.
And I really hope that we can work towards something where students don't go, theory, you know, we should try and find our ways, shouldn't we, to make that exciting for them and inspirational.
Thank you. So thank you for everybody that's adding their comments and views in, and we're just going to move on to the next key area. So over back to you, Debbie. Assessing the right things. Oh, I've gone one too far. Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
There we go.
Assessing the right. Okay, so again, as teachers, you're going to be the ones kind of leading this, and so keep putting your comments in. Keep giving us your point of view. It's really, really important. We have got some styles in this current specification. We have got a variety of practitioners. Things have moved on. So maybe this is a point where you might want to start saying to us what styles you think we could investigate, or any practitioners that you feel are going to resonate with young people, and even simple things like the length of works.
Yeah.
I know when this spec was designed, the works were specifically chosen for lots of reasons, inclusivity and all sorts of different things. But one of the reasons they were chosen was length, so they could be studied within a normal lesson time. Do you think that's still important? Or are you kind of happy to look at something across 3 lessons? I don't know if it was longer. For me, I quite like the idea of watching something from beginning to end so that they get the whole context of it, and they feel like they've got a kind of a whole overview. But maybe length is important for the works. Styles, so style in choreography, style in performance. What are your thoughts on that? I do want to do a bit of myth busting. There's quite a feeling out there that this is a very contemporary spec. I think that's led by the phrases. Because the performance isn't. I mean, we see a vast array of performance styles, and we see style fusion, and some styles are going to work for choreography. Not every style will work for it, but so what are your feelings on style?
We also need to make sure that it can be assessed. You know, it's great to be able to have everything, but we want to make sure that everything is able to be assessed at the same fairly. You know, and we were talking about sort of, you know, you could look at sort of digital music versus an instrument. They need to be comparable, and this is the same thing.
Yes. So I think having views on that is going to be really important. Assessment focusing on core areas. So at the moment we have in performance, we have 3. I think this is really looking at the 3 things we have: physical, technical and expressive skills. How do you feel about that, and whether there are other areas that we are missing and you feel that could be introduced? I'm not sure what they may be. Choreography, we did move on a little bit with this spec. We used to have just for oral setting, I think we used to have, if I remember rightly, it might have been choice, so I could have got that wrong. But now we have choice and use. So is there something about the criteria that actually could be developed so that we absolutely are assessing creativity? What we don't want to do is assess by numbers, do we?
No, absolutely not.
Choreography is not points based, is it? It's, and I know people have, you know, feelings about choreography, and it's quite hard to assess, but equally we don't want to go down a points based mark scheme. Are we getting enough expression out of our young people? Because again, coming back to set phrases, I'm not sure that's an area where they have an opportunity to really, because there is no choreographic intent for them.
Yeah.
So, and then assessment values, at the moment, interpretation, that moved on with this specification. When before this spec, we didn't ask young people what their interpretation of set works were.
I remember.
And we do ask them now.
Yeah.
How else can we move that forward? Are they comfortable with personal interpretation? I don't know. Are they mature enough? Some of them are, I think.
I think a lot of the problem at the moment is, and this is, not anybody's teaching or the assessments or anything. I think so much in year 10 is about assessment. So much is about thinking towards that assessment and actually sort of going back to we want our students to be enjoying dance, understanding it, creating their identity, that if they didn't sort of think about that part until year 11.
Well, in theory, the current spec was created for that. It was created for year 10 to just dance, learn about the works, and not have that kind of cloud of assessment over them. I don't know. Some people might want to assess in year 10. I think if you do assess in year 10, you've got to be ready you've got to be sure that they're ready.
But these are linear qualifications, and but we need to make sure, I guess it goes back to that burden and that number of tasks, etc.
Well, I think quite a lot, especially when we get to March, April, a lot of teachers are feeling under a huge amount of pressure. I mean, you can bank, don't forget we are banking our assessment, so that does make a difference. But in terms of the number of tasks, we currently have a lot of tasks. So I think that's another area where we can.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm just going to move on to the next one. So we're looking here, and I just hand back to you. Really, I mean, there's some overlap in all of these, but sort of the key things here.
Well, again, I think reflecting styles and practitioners and global influences, that goes back to ensuring we can do that through practical and theory, I think. Yeah. So we'd be very interested in people's opinions about how we can achieve that. And I think it's not just about saying what we haven't got at the moment. I think it's also about what we've got that we can build on. Yeah. So, current dance companies, our works are kind of a little dated now. It's inevitable with the life of the specification, isn't it? I'd be interested in any suggestions of dance companies. I know there's one dance company in Birmingham, they're relatively new, are completely wheelchair dancers. I mean, that might be interesting, and especially if you're a wheelchair dancer, you've got a wheelchair dancer in your school. How that's pretty inspirational, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really? Do we want assessment that reflects real industry creative processes, or actually, do you think that's something that GCSE should address? I mean, I don't have a strong feeling about that particularly. I feel that I think our creative processes, once they go into work, some young people use what they've learned in GCSE dance without even realising they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because they've just worked in such a creative way that they just carry that with them. And so I think creativity is really going to be important for us. We have some now, but I think it can be developed. Transferable skills, I don't need to tell any dance teacher about transferable skills. I mean, you all know about those, and the list can go on and on and on, can't it?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure when you're trying to raise the profile of your subject in your school, that's one of the areas that you kind of are going to talk about. All those wraparound things that a good dance experience will bring you. I think that's where things are on that one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, inclusion. Well, we can always do more, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can always do more. We have worked through the last couple of years, and I'm very lucky to have worked with AQA on this. We have worked on access arrangements, and I think really the mantra is it should be access for all.
Absolutely.
I don't, I think there may be some places that don't feel GCSE dance might be for their students, but from this perspective, it absolutely is. And we could still go further, couldn't we?
Yeah.
But that's the thing with everything. One of the areas that's really starting to gather a bit of momentum is the support for SEND, and the way AQA are working with teachers who contact them because they have students with individual needs. And that's something we need to keep building on and keep building on. But it's important that the teacher contacts AQA.
Yeah.
Because we don't know where those students are. But
yeah,
speak
to us.
Yes. And strategies can be put in place. And as we put those strategies in place, we get better at knowing what strategies. So it's a kind of
yeah, and I think absolutely, you know, any sort of insight or experiences that you've had would be great to share with us in the sort of comments boxes. And if you have sort of future questions, I am going to give some contact details in a minute, but absolutely do share that with us. But I do think, I mean, one of the things I was really lucky to work on the reform of GCSE dance at the last time, and I think it was really a revolutionary bold move that we have the qualification that we have in some respects with artificial things and our adaptation process. And, you know, we really was encouraged by Ofcom and the Department for Education to make sure that the qualification was inclusive. But as you've said, we can go a lot further.
Yes, and we have also some young people who are really inspirational, you know, that just love dance, but they may be differently abled. So, you know, why shouldn't they just enjoy it? And I think that access is just, I think it's just going to roll and roll, and it's going to get better and better.
Okay, we just have one last slide, and this is really, I mean, this is about making sure that we have a consistent and coherent curriculum. So make sure that the standards across the components are the same. There's clear continuity of skills, knowledge of the course, and that coherent curriculum for progression. I think that probably just covers, you know, like so some key messages. But if there's anything you want to add to that, but do if pop into the chat if there's anything else on that area.
I think I talk to quite a lot of teachers, and I know teachers talk to other teachers, and I would be really interested in what support you want for either assessment as we move forward. We do have lots of things that AQA have lots of things they offer, don't you?
Absolutely.
NEA advisors, and you offer courses, but on last week's webinar, I think it came up that a teacher said, can we have a revision book or a revision booklet? So it's also about what is going to help you when we do get to a new specification, what is going to help you understand the expectations, what's going to help you understand the standards. What support do we need, or do AQA need to put into place that's going to take you seamlessly from one specification to the other? Because I think also, Sandra, teachers, we have a lot of teachers, don't we, who are GCSE dance teachers, and they're also A-level dance teachers, and they may also do drama
and
PE. So there's going to be potentially an awful lot of crossover and specifications and information coming at you, but what can we put in place that supports that transition? And my mantra is, for the new spec, I feel like what we all want to do when we are assessing is watch it, mark it. At the moment, we watch a set phrase, we mark it. We watch a set phrase, we mark it. We aggregate the mark across there. We park a mental skills mark. We mark duet trio, we go back to mental skills, we think about the mental skills across both tasks, and we end up with a performance mark. We seriously need to move on from that, and we need to look at keeping that assessment really straightforward, and in that way making it fantastic for students, but also with the teacher's workload in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. That really, I mean, I was going to say I did a little bit on a high note, but it was a little bit on a reality check, and I was a bit exhausted after you've just marked all of that work.
Yes.
Just like looking now, just before we wrap up, what AQA are really advocating for. So a lot of these things we know already that the curriculum assessment review has said, but we are advocating for that sort of review of the subject content, the assessment, the balance to ensure it's correct and it current and supports that progression. We want to ensure the content is relevant, accessible and representative of styles, practitioners and cultural influences. We want to prioritise authentic and practical assessment and most importantly, review of those assessment tasks to avoid repetition and reduce burden for both our learners and our teachers. We want to improve that assessment validity and reflect the practical and creative nature that dance is such a wonderful qualification that it is. And we want to reduce those unnecessary written demands, ensuring that GCSE dance is clear, consistent and manageable.
Can I just add one?
Of course.
Sorry, I know we've got on to the very last bit, but I feel like for the written paper, we talked a lot about the set works.
Yep.
So I'm just going to ask you as teachers what you feel the theory should look like.
Yes, absolutely.
Should it just be set works? We currently talk about their own practice. Should it be about choreographic process? Should it be about the healthy dancer? Should it be about, well, have you got a feeling of what that might look like? Because the theory isn't just about the set works.
Absolutely.
I feel like
we did it. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. There's only so much we can do.
I know.
But honestly,
I'm going down a rabbit hole with so much. But I do think it's exciting, and this is
really exciting.
You know, as dance teachers, this is our chance.
Thank you. So just sort of kind of wrapping up a little bit. So just a quick poll. So how clear are you now on assessment reform and what it could mean for you? So that would be great. Hopefully you're a lot more informed than before we started. And then we have our teacher panel. And as I've said, we do work to create we do work with teachers to create our products with you. So joining our teacher panel is absolutely vital for you to have your say, and we'll make it easy for you to have your voice and contribute to our qualification. So please do join, and let's shape the future of assessment together. I've also put some contact details there of our dance subject team. So if you don't know those, please do get in touch if you do have any questions or if you want to talk to me in any more detail. But please make sure you join our teacher panel. So the last thing I have to say is a huge thank you. First of all, thank you for a wonderful year of teaching. And as we go into a well-deserved summer break for you all. I also want to say thank you for attending, and a huge thank you to you, Debbie, for taking the time out at a really busy time for you to come and join me. So it's not an hour of me talking constantly, but really share your insights. So thank you, everybody. And I look forward to reading all your insights and obviously continuing this conversation as we go forward.
Thank you.